going on, Huh Nation? Gonna do a political science that explains Trump. We'll see how this works out.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
The 2016 Republican presidential nominee disregards the norms of adult behavior. He disregards the norms of American democracy as we know it.
It should be heartbreaking to every American that we have a front runner that suggests there will be a religious test for anybody who wishes to come to our shores.
He's so unusual, his rhetoric at times so extreme, that political experts and commentators were blindsided by his rise.
Damn right they were blindsided. And they have fought since then to try to bring him down.
How did Donald Trump attract such broad support within the Republican Party? And what does it mean for the U.S. beyond this election?
And it turns out that this is a question that can be answered to a really surprising extent via this niche field of political science. It developed a theory about what's called authoritarianism.
We're not talking about dictatorship.
Authoritarianism.
Authoritarianism is a term political scientists use for a worldview that values order and authority and distrusts outsiders and social change. And
okay. I mean, I know a lot of people that distrust outsiders and social change. There's a ton of social change going on right now. It is ridiculous the amount of things that are going on right now. It has really taken its toll on people. People look back in history and be like, this time was, you know, pretty intense, just like we've looked back at other times and it was pretty intense, but we live it every day. I mean, just off the top of my head, I mean, we've had, you know, gay marriage go legal. You know, there's this big controversy now with transgenders, or, you know, basically gender-neutral bathrooms being politically correct all the time. You can't say anything that offends anybody. You know, everybody's got to win. You know, there's nobody that loses anymore. It's like we've gotten to a point in our country where we're so easily offended and so easily bothered by anybody's opinion that it just instantly turns us on, you know. And it's probably the #1 reason they don't have a dislike button on Facebook. Even though they could very easily put it in, I think it would really show you how evil or how mean people really are who are supposed to be your friends. Right now, I have shut Facebook off. I go on it maybe once a week now, maybe even once every 2 weeks. I just avoid it in general, and I will probably avoid it in general until this election is over, because of all of the hate and all of the spam that it puts out. It's just tiring to even look at it. You know, it just makes you mad and gets you going.
Are you going to have a massive deportation force?
You're going to have a deportation force. I would bring back waterboarding, and I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding.
Testing people for authoritarianism is a bit tricky.
You can't necessarily just ask people, are you really freaked out by social change? Do racial differences unsettle you? Do you support strongman leaders? Because those are very sensitive questions and people won't necessarily answer them honestly.
So instead, political scientists ask people about something more neutral, their parenting preferences.
Please tell me which one you think is more important for a child to have: independence or respect for elders, obedience or self-reliance.
These questions seem like they're about raising children.
Okay. Please tell us which one of these is more important for a child to have: independence or respect for elders. I think they're both equally high. Honestly, I wouldn't say either one of them is low on the scale. I think you need to be an independent person, but you also need to respect people that are older than you because they've been through a lot more, and you need to just respect their position on things. So out of those two, I would say being independent is slightly a bit higher than respect for your elders, but they're, in my mind, they're both equal. You gotta care a lot about both of those things. Please tell us which one you think is more important for a child to have: obedience or self-reliance. Obedience is very important. Self-reliance is very important too. I would say I would lean more towards self-reliance and less towards obedience. The more I've read on obedience training, the less it works. You know, forcing children to be obedient isn't necessarily always the right thing. And that's why we've had a lot of psychologists, you know, study into these things. Self-reliance is very important. You need to be able to to do things yourself as you get older. Please tell us which one you think is more important for a child to have, curiosity or good manners. Good manners. You should always be polite to people. You should always be nice to people. You should always be, respectful of other people constantly. It kind of goes up to the respect your elders thing and good manners. These kind of go hand in hand. I mean, these are kind of the same question. You want to be independent or independent and curious, or be respectful and have good manners. Curiosity killed the cat, remember?
Really what they're asking.
I would say good manners in my opinion. And then you want them to be considerate or well behaved. I always want them to be well behaved. Maybe that just because it more reflects on me as a person than being considerate, but I'd want them to be more well behaved. So well behaved to me, good manners, I want them self-reliant, and I would want them independent if I had to rank those rankings right there. But overall, I think all 8 of these things are very important to have, and I don't think any one of them is more strongly needed than the other. I think you should have all of these equally and equally accept all of these things, in my opinion.
People is how much they value order and authority.
Threats.
Wait a minute. I don't know what these numbers are telling me here, but you're saying this is non-authoritarianism? I call bullshit on that. I think more people in the Republican Party and as an authoritarianism aren't as high worried about gun violence as, say, a Democrat or a socialist would be, because they focus on gun violence every day, and they are fearmongers of gun violence constantly. Car accidents, that I would say is neutral across the board. Most people are concerned about them, but it's kind of something that sits in our background, and we got so much political noise and other things going on that we don't even really pay attention to car accidents anymore. Prescription drugs pose a high risk to me. I would say that's got to be about even too. I don't know where these numbers are. How many people voted for this, and this. But I would say that gun violence would definitely be higher over here, than it is on the Republican side.
Non-authoritarians. But when it came to threats associated with people, and particularly foreign people, authoritarians were much more afraid.
Okay. Terrorist groups and ISIS pose a higher risk to me. Not necessarily. They don't pose a high risk to you, but they do pose a high potential risk to you, a higher potential risk than most things. I think the question is kind of worded differently, because does it pose a high risk to me on a daily basis? No. Does it pose a potential high risk to me, throughout my lifetime? Yes. Yes, it does. Iran's government poses a high risk to me. Again, same thing. Does it pose a high risk to me today? No. Does it pose a high risk to me in the future? Very probable, especially with all the money that we've been giving them. Russia's government poses a high risk to me. You know what? I'm a person who likes Russia. I like the Russian people. I've never met a Russian that was really a bad person. I mean, honestly, they're all really good. Do they pose a high risk? No. I think a lot of the news and the depictions we've done of Russians has been pretty negative towards them, but they're just basically doing what we won't step up to do at the moment. Yeah, more than likely, yeah, I could see that being a high point in authoritarianism. But I would always follow the caution that diplomacy first. If you violate the rules of diplomacy, your diplomatic agreement with us as a country, then there are consequences. Where now our diplomacy is, we come in, we give you a contract. If you fail to heed that contract, we come in with a new contract, and just keep coming in with a new contract and a new contract and a new contract. There really is no downside to defaulting on your contract. It would be like me going and getting a car loan and then not paying it, and then they just constantly keep giving me a new car loan without me having to pay it, until something were to step in and say, hey, you didn't pay for your loan, you didn't follow your agreement, now we confiscate your car. Simple as that. Airport checks and passengers who appear to be Middle Eastern descent. I believe that's racial profiling. I would not agree with that at all. I think immigration itself should be overhauled. I think we should be able to look at immigration and, you know, come up with that national ID card. Everybody should have a national ID card. Everybody should be able to identify who they are, how old they are. You know, I know there are certain countries in the world where people are just born and they have no idea their date of birth. You know, they may not even have an idea of who their parents are, that when they were born type of deal. But you should have a generally good idea of how old you are. Airport checks on passengers who appear to be Middle Eastern, that's racial profiling, but I think airport checks should be done heavily on anybody flying an airplane, and I think that immigration plays a large role into why people are afraid of this at the moment. Requiring all citizens to carry national ID cards to show the police on request. You should have a national ID card. I'm a strong believer in everybody needs to have some kind of identification on them at all point in time. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your reason is for not having it. You should have that card. We should be able to know what your name is. We should be able to know who you are and where you live. I mean, let's say you got in a car accident. Nobody knows who you are. That's great. How do we inform your family that something happened to you? So we found you dead up on the river. Now we've got to do all kinds of DNA tests, search databases to try to figure out who you are. Everybody should carry a national ID card, and it should be required to vote, in my opinion. Changing constitution to bar citizenship for children of illegal immigrants. Okay, so what they're talking about here, if you're not familiar with this, is basically they're referring to anchor babies. An anchor baby is, you know, say a Hispanic person from Mexico comes into this country and gives birth to their child. Currently, certain states are more favorable to them, allowing them to stay in that state or in this country by giving them, you know, basically a type of immunity, saying, you know, your kid was born here, we want you to be with your child. And those are very important things. I don't think a mother should ever be separated from her child. I don't think we should have a constitutional change that bar citizenship for children of illegal immigrants. I think we need, like I said back up at the airport checks one, we need a better immigration system that allows a better flow of people into this country. And we need a better worldwide structure in general that allows people to get the opportunities that they deserve, allow people to learn, allow people to acquire the housing that they want, allow people to acquire the transportation that they want, and have the fun that they want. Everybody's hardworking in this world. It's just a matter of, you know, who has the goods and who doesn't.
I want surveillance of certain mosques, okay?
Now see, we wouldn't need heavy amounts of surveillance on certain mosques if we had proper immigration in this country that actually did its research properly, actually check people's Facebook pages, check their social media pages, you know, try to identify who they are before they're coming here, give them tests. You know, these are all very important things that should be done. I mean, you're pulling in somebody into a very well-established society, and they should be questioned as to, you know, what do you want to do here? What are your goals? What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? You know, where were you born? Do you have social media sites? Can I see them? You know, because, I mean, if I'm at risk of any employer looking at my social media at any given time and firing me or deciding my employment based upon my social media, then why is it so bad to use social media to look at immigrants coming in?
This theory doesn't fully explain the Trump phenomenon. Researchers will probably study this election for decades. But what it tells us is that he's benefited from a larger shift in this country, one that goes beyond any one candidate.
Trump isn't just a fluke. He's not somebody who's just doing well because he had name recognition or was a famous TV star. This is a large group of people. They want these things, and they're going to be looking for politicians who can give it to them. And that means that Donald Trump could be just the first of many Trumps in American politics.
I would agree with that. I think a lot of people have been screwed over by the system when we elect officials that don't follow the people's will and just do whatever they want to do. I think it's ridiculous that we have long, you know, we don't have any restriction on, you know, like a senator's seat, but we have a restriction on how long a president can be in. There should be a restriction on any government office. You you shouldn't be able to hold that position, you know, for your entire life and just basically hold your values to it your entire life. And I understand that there's a voting system out there that can remove those people, but the whole point is people fall into a cycle where they just don't really want to deal with change, don't want to accept it, so they just keep voting for the same person over, and even if they don't listen or follow politics, they just keep voting for the same person over and over again because their life hasn't been detrimented in any way large enough for them to care to want to vote for somebody else. But I see a lot of governors who won't follow the will of the people. You know, if a large majority of people in this country want something, we should be allowed to have it. The one governor over in Colorado, you know, he was against marijuana legalization full out. It was against his belief structure and things like that. Well, the people spoke and said, we want this. The majority of the people wanted this. So he looked at it and said, okay, if a majority of my voters and the majority of the people in my state want this, and it's not going to hurt anybody, I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to sign it into law. I'm not going to, you know, decline it. I'm going to sign it into law. And I think a lot of governors nowadays, they've taken more of their personal beliefs and less of, you know, what does my state want? What do the people want? And that's where I think Trump is getting a lot of ground, is he is trying to appeal to the people who have basically been stepped on, you know, sat on, used over the years in this country. And frankly, a lot of people are getting tired of it. So anyways, guys, like, comment, subscribe. You have a good night.
That's how we roll, man. Let's take that shot.